So I'm going to pick up a couple more important points before we go on to a specific example. We talked about how it's ethically important to understand your own biases and others. I wanted to pick up some important information to help you spot bias in others. So the first important idea is that others' biases can influence you. So just be aware of that. We talked about that. Learn to spot flawed arguments. So this happens every day. People are making an argument that seems irrefutable, but if you have a little bit of an awareness of some of the common argument flaws, this will hopefully inoculate you against just being blown by the winds of other people's opinions and not being able to have a strong anchor or foundation of your own opinions, and being able to kind of recognize when people are just blowing wind at you. So we'll go into these argument flaws. First is a red herring. So this is just a distraction from the core argument that really is going on. So it's really not applicable to the argument that's being put in place. So the idea is that it's something that's convincing in and of itself, but so it seems like, wow, I can't refute that, but it's not directly related to the argument at hand. Okay, the second one is the bandwagon fallacy. So this is the idea that if most people do it, then you should have this opinion too, regardless of what your core values might actually be. So this is an important one. So it suggests, with respect to ethical opinions, it suggests that something is ethical because enough other people are doing it. This is a classic one. You probably heard it. Come on, everybody's doing it. You've heard that with respect to a peer pressure. It's kind of a peer pressure type of argument. If enough people believe this or that, then certainly you should believe it too. And sometimes those are important arguments to be made, but it's important to kind of just check that out, recognize it's a bandwagon, and decide if that really matches your core values or not. So if something is commonly done, or others believe it more commonly, or it is suggested, oftentimes there's some, X% of Americans believe this or that, it'd be important to cite the study if that's true and go back and identify the study and maybe make sure that's a real study. So this can be extended to anything that is currently legal. We have a long history in this country of things that were technically legal that upon hindsight, we look back and think, I can't believe that was legally embedded in the code of laws in this country. And every country has this kind of ugly history of so-called laws that, of real actual laws that are easy to mistake for meaning they're ethical. So it's important to, again, have that strong core belief system and say, okay, the laws might say this, but is this still something I really believe in? So if it's legal, it's ethical is the argument, how the argument goes, but sometimes you have to check that versus your own belief system. Okay, and so remember directionality mistakes too. There could be a lot of things that are legal that kind of might match your ethical code. Hopefully, most people living in a civilized society agree with a lot of the laws, and they're there to keep us safe. But this directionality happens too. Well, therefore, if most of the laws match my ethics, anything that's legal is going to match my ethics. You have to watch those kind of argument flaws in how you move your logic back and forth and recognize where those boundaries hit to say that doesn't necessarily go in both directions. The last one is an appeal to authority. So basically citing an expert's opinion on something without necessarily having supporting facts to go with it. So this happens all the time in legal battles. Somebody will bring in an expert witness, and the expert witness will be Dr. So-and-so, And so sometimes though you have to look at, they're a doctor of what now? And they're testifying in this other completely, like you take a foot doctor and have them testify to the mental state of someone and say, Dr. So-and-so, what do you think of this and that? Well, okay, let's look at the actual authority in that so-called authority and see if it's gives them license to talk about the particular subject at hand. This happens all the time with an effort to convince you of things. These are arguments that are designed to convince you of things. And since we're talking about biases, it's really important to be able to spot flawed arguments. So there's certain implicit authorities that you'll see that don't even say, I'm the doctor of so-and-so. They are just your textbook. And so we have to take on authority most things textbooks say that are presumed to be factual with respect to the area of interest. So we have a textbook for behavioral neuroscience. We have to believe that most of what's there is accurate statements. But if there's something that kind of blurs into an opinion realm, be cautious, because suddenly the author or authors of a textbook are spouting off about opinions that we have to be cautious of. Of course, in this day and age, we have to recognize people who are on TV in front of the camera somehow got themselves credentialed enough to be in front of a camera. We make an implicit assumption that gives them their opinion more authority than the lay person who didn't get themselves a job in front of a camera. Have to use a lot of caution nowadays, because lots of people can get in front of the camera, and once they're there, they use that as their what we call bully pulpit, the platform from which to spout opinions. And we have to think critically about those. Those are just opinions, and are there facts to back it up? With the textbook, this part of the reason I chose the textbook I did for this class is many times throughout a chapter where it says it appears that such and such is mediated by this place in the brain, they'll give in parentheses names of authors and the date of the publication that provided the evidence for that. That's what you always want to look for. If somebody's stating something as if it's a fact, you're going to want to see, well, what is this supporting evidence? Not every medium can do this all the time, but sometimes if it's a pretty important statement that might sway your opinion all the way into the future on the same subject, you might want to look for the parentheses that go behind that and support it in some way and make sure that it's relevant to what's being discussed. We'll pick up more in the next video.